It's the Elsa Show with Clay Novak. Serving up trending news and conservative views. Brought to you by the Elsa Collection. And Refuge Medical. And now, it's time for the show.
Well, happy Wednesday for us. Thursday for everybody that's going to be watching. Look at that. I hit it right off the top there, right at the beginning.
Yeah.
Yes. And that means like 3 people just said, well, I'm not going to watch it if it's not live.
Yeah.
We love you anyway. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
4:30 on Wednesday on the East Coast, folks. That's when we're recording.
Yes.
And it's been a rapid fire week, and we're going to talk about a lot. There's even stuff. We set our topics yesterday, and there's been plenty of stuff that's happened between yesterday and today. So we're trying to stay on top of things, folks, but we'll talk about all of it right after this.
From border bills and broken budgets to judges finally being put in check, we're exposing billion-dollar scams, honoring fallen heroes, calling out fake Bronx fairy tales, and yes, crashing Bezos' billionaire love fest. Truth, grit, and just the right amount of snark. Let's get on with the show.
So we've got big topics. This, of course,
one big beautiful bill, and we got to get it done.
The one big beautiful bill, although it's technically unnamed right now, thanks to Chucky, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Chuck Schumer's parting gift to the one big beautiful bill as it departed the Senate was to take that name off of it, which I thought was incredibly petty, but also very apropos for Chuck Schumer. So, one big beautiful bill is a very, very big deal. Covers a lot. I mean, the name says it all. That was the intent. But, with that, it takes a process. And when you make an all-encompassing bill like this, there's concessions to be made. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah. And there's a lot of big feelings about it on both sides. Everybody's got big feelings about it. And, I understand why. So here, the plain English version of it is the bill cuts taxes for families and small businesses. Great news, obviously, especially if you're the kind of person that likes keeping more of what you earn in your pockets, right? Let's see what else. It throws big bucks at border security and military readiness. Kind of big deals, if you're asking me. That's America first. I love that. But it also slashes funding for Medicaid, which is the one that people are making the biggest fuss about. And I have to be honest, I had to kind of do a little bit deeper dive in this because, of course, you hear everybody's throwing out, different things about it. And one of the things that the people who are proponents for the OBBB are saying this, it's all good, it's fine, it's great, it's taking it away from people who shouldn't be getting it anyhow, like illegals, blah, 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 that stuff. Other people are saying, of course, you got Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas, crying that you're harming millions of people. So I did kind of, I shouldn't say I dove deep, but I dove into it a little bit more. And, I have to be honest, it kind of sounds to me like it's the people aren't going to be eligible for are able-bodied people, like people who are eligible to work are able to work. So you're kind of like lessening the burden, and I think the bigger deal here is lessening the dependence on the government, right? Because that seems to be, in my opinion, one of our biggest issues as a nation. The left in particular pushes this dependence on government, for basically everything. And the right says, you don't want big government in all of your business. Let's get out of your pockets, out of your personal lives, out of all of this, step back, let the states determine, the majority of things. And this is one of those things that, based on my understanding, it kind of makes sense. What do you think?
Yeah. So, this bill administratively, it started obviously administratively in the Senate. It passed by whatever, I think it was one vote, moved to the House for, really the negotiation and then the round robin voting that happened over the last week or so. And then now it's been kicked back to the Senate for approval. I'm sorry, I have that backwards. So House first, very narrow vote over to the Senate,
yes,
over to the Senate for the negotiation. And the vice president ended up being the tie-breaking vote because, the Democrats all ran party line. there was 3 Republicans that moved and voted with the Democrats, and then Vice President was a tiebreaker, and now it's been kicked back to the House for the final vote before it goes to President Trump, and the goal is to have it to him by the 4th of July. So, it's been administratively, it's been an interesting proposition because this is such a widespread bill. A lot of him and Han, Chuck Schumer had the whole 940 pages read out loud or whatever it was, his proposal. There's a lot of give and take. And certain people won and certain interests won and certain interests lost. I don't think there's a single congressperson on either side of the aisle that will say it's an awesome bill in every but this is getting things done, which we haven't done in so long. Like literally nothing has moved in 4 years.
Right.
Whether you like it or not, things are happening. And there are things that both sides of the aisle like, or I should say, there's things that the Democrats like and things they don't like and things the Republicans like and things they don't like. And, but it's moving, which this is progress. And I understand, you dove into Medicare more than I did, but I got the same gist. You probably have more detail than I do. But that's perspective. That is the biggest difference in the two parties is how they choose to spend the nation's money. Conservatives generally it's for security, and those lines of money. And then, on the Democrat side, it's social programs and social support and those sorts of things. And it's two very, very different mindsets in how to spend that money. So, again, moving forward, but we're talking, this is $4.4 trillion. Have I got that number right?
I think so. I don't even know if I have the number in my notes here. Yeah, I don't see the exact number, but I think you're right. Yeah. I'm still looking. Mm-hmm.
I know that, some of the concessions that were made, like you said, Medicare, was a negotiating point on both sides. I know that, there's some food program delays, like cost increase in social food programs that were a negotiating point. I know that where Second Amendment stuff is concerned, there was some negotiation there. There was a big push to have short-barreled rifles and shotguns not registered and not pay a tax stamp $200. The same thing with suppressors. And the negotiation point was, well, you don't have to pay the $200 extra fee to the federal government, but you do still have to register them. So, both sides, there's a lot of give and take. The parliamentarian stuck her nose in the middle of this multiple times. And
right.
That Senate had to work around her. It was just, I learned a lot about this, the round robin voting and those sorts of things. This was very different, I think, than most of us have ever experienced because of the size and scope of this bill.
Yeah, it's huge. And we all, everybody had to have known, and I'm talking about insiders and outsiders, observers of the whole process. Everybody has to know that the whole thing is not going to pass. They're not going to agree on every single detail. They can't agree on small things, let alone big things. It's, this is a constant battle, particularly because it's Trump and they don't want to give him any wins, if they could help it. And of course, obviously, the American people are the ones that always get lost in the shuffle of all of this contest that they have. I was going to say something vulgar, and I'll just let everybody's imaginations run. The funny part to me, going back to Schumer for a second there, remember when Obama's big bill was going to be passed, and what's her name, the Crypt Keeper? Pelosi.
Oh, Maxine
come up
Waters?
with it for a second there. I could see her. No, Pelosi. Oh, they both could be. Yeah, it was a great guess though, actually. No, Pelosi, remember she said, well, we have to pass it if you want to see what's in it. But this time around, they managed, right? And this one, they had to read all, 900 pages of it before they could, take a step forward. And, and I don't know, maybe that's like one of the many of the significant differences between the two parties. Why didn't the GOP do that? Why didn't the Republicans do that with that bill? Why didn't they force it? I guess if they didn't have the majority and they maybe didn't have the say to do it, does that ring true? Probably. Yeah.
So part of the the give and take in this was because of the Byrd Act, the stipulations associated with that would be a 60% vote, which they knew they wouldn't get. So they basically negotiated out portions of the bill to allow it to go to a simple majority of 51, which in this case included the vice president. So I think they wanted to. I think they just wanted to get it through, and I think they had their hardline points that they wanted. You know, and as long as those hard lines weren't, you know, violated, then they were happy to move it through. And I think, like any good, you know, negotiator, they had all of the things lined up that they were willing to give up. And so, you know, they negotiated through and kept it at the, hey, let's just get it through with 51. But I think if they hardlined it in the same way that Pelosi had done those years ago, it would have turned into you need 60%, and they just weren't going to have it. So, you know, my understanding is like Alaska was the big winner in all of this, you know, because we had a lot of senators who were really what we want them to do, which was acting on the behalf of their constituency. And she, you know, the senator from Alaska negotiated quite a few things to benefit her state. And a lot of it had to do with oil drilling and leases and those kinds of things. And so, you know, good for her. You know, that's what we elect these people to do, is to, you know, work on our behalf or the behalf of their constituents. And, you know, in this case, she did what was best for her constituency, and good on her. You know, that's what we all want them to do. But this is progress. Again, we've went 4 years without really getting anything done. And now we're actually, a bill is moving to change some things. So I think it's a bonus no matter what, even if there's things that I don't agree with, or, you know, whatever party you belong to, if you don't agree with, the fact that we're making any progress whatsoever, I think is huge.
Yeah, I agree. And a question for you, I don't know if you know the answer to this. So the things that were taken out, removed from it, does that mean that it can't possibly mean that those are completely dead? I would imagine they're going to try and work those in likely somewhere else at another time, and another bill and another something, right? I mean, all is not lost.
Yeah,
I guess
they will try and work them as, they'll either be individual bills, or they'll be, you know, pork in some other kind of a bill. You know, but it just because they've been pulled out of this doesn't mean that they're dead forever. And they'll, you know, if they're super important, then they'll reintroduce them later in another form or fashion. I can promise you that all of this stuff, you know, as they prep to go into these things, you know, by party, whether it's by the whip or whoever it is, you know, they look through there and they say, these are hard lines. These are second tier. Like, you know, we want to keep as many of these as possible, but we can, you know, negotiate. And then these at the bottom, like, we'll throw these away in a heartbeat. You know what I mean? And then they probably got it marked as, you know, reintroduce later. Let's bring this back another time, that kind of thing. Musk has been like the biggest opposition to this bill. Even after him and President Trump had their little fight, it seems like he is still going after this thing in the way that, you know, he's now talking about building a third party, an America party, because this bill as a whole is such a disappointment.
Yeah. I think it is such a embarrassingly petty and childish move on his part. And, you know, I don't have anything against Elon currently, except for, you know, this kind of absurd behavior that he's got going on right now. He has to know that that's nothing but detrimental, you know? So who knows what he's going to do? He's kind of a loose cannon, right? I mean, he just does whatever it is he wants to do, and he can change on a whim, and, you know, we'll just have to see what happens. But I think it's, you know, and I think most people, I think that's kind of the consensus of a lot of people, that is a terrible idea. You're not going to take votes away from the Democrats. You're going to take votes away from Republicans. And, you know, we've had third parties, you know, your Ross Perot and all of that stuff. And all it does is damage the process and any viable candidate that we might actually have. So, you know, but there's also enough people that love the idea, that think it's a brilliant idea. And those are people that just like to throw the wrench in the system, I think, right?
Yeah. You know, whether it's Ross Perot or even RFK Jr., it does, you know, habitually take votes away from, you know, I hate to say the conservative side, but that, you know, RFK backing Trump late in the election is really what carried the day, in my opinion. That secured the election. And Ross Perot running until the end to the end against President Bush is what lost him re-election against President Clinton. So that the conservative side rarely benefits from that. But I'm all for it. I think, you know, whether it's the Tea Party, whether it's independent, I think we need more options, you know, across the board. I think it's better for the nation. But before I brought up Elon, you were going to ask another question before I rudely interrupted you.
Oh, it wasn't rude at all. You know what? If I could remember what it was, it's like a total blind. I don't remember what the question was. It's all good. You're asking me to remember something from like 5 minutes ago? Stop being crazy, Clay. That's a silly notion.
My bad.
Listen, you asked me the lyrics to a song that I listened to when I was 12 years old. I've got you, but don't ask me anything from, 5 minutes ago or this morning or yesterday or last week. It's terrible. It's actually kind of frightening.
Did anybody else just get a picture of Elsa in a jean jacket listening to Whitesnake? That's what I just pictured, like in my head.
You know what? I had we're segueing, guys, just roll with it. I had such a super eclectic musical taste. My mother, when I was a kid, listened to a mixture of like Motown, and then she had her, what I call depressing music. It was like Carole King and, and Helen Reddy. Oh my gosh. All of these things that like just always made me feel like super depressed. And I was too young to even understand why. Now when I hear them back, I'm like, because they were depressing songs. They were so like sad and mopey. And my brother was listening to things like In Excess and everybody was eclectic. It was like Rolling Stones, In Excess, super 80s stuff. So I listened to everything, including Whitesnake. Never had, I had a jean jacket, but I never had a white denim jacket. So yeah, never liked that. Weird thing to point out, just saying, I don't know. But yeah, I definitely had the big hair, huge hair. I'll have to scrape up a picture for you guys and show it.
Believe it or not, I was a scruffy haired soccer player in high school. So it was a lot of cuffed jeans and, the rolled in cuffed jeans, indoor soccer shoes, t-shirts, dirty baseball hat, which clearly hasn't changed. And scruffy hair. That was me.
Like as in long scruffy hair? I need to see a picture of like shaggy.
It was shaggy. Yeah. It was shaggy. I'll dig up and send you a picture as well. Yeah.
All right. If he sends it in time, these pictures we're going to be up like right in the middle of us, or maybe I'll just put it right over us, and I'll do little cutouts for the mouths so the mouths can be moving. I'm not that talented. I can't do that. All right. Sorry, guys. Back to business. So yeah, as far as the one big beautiful bill, do you think it's going to be through by the 4th? I mean, I guess it's possible, but not likely, right? Or yeah, it is. Yeah. Okay.
I think it will. I think it's going to get voted through. I think it's going to make it. I think it's going to go to the president. Okay. And him, he'll sign it at midnight on the 3rd, if that's what he's got to do, and be done with it. But I think it'll be for the weekend.
Nice. Cool. I love it. Let's get going. Like whatever the case is, just let's go. Tired of hearing about it. Let's just do it, move on from it and go from there. And I think there's a greater plan going on. What did they say? It's been said many times about Trump that, he plays chess while everybody else is playing checkers, right? So he's got a plan. I'm not worried about it. Yeah. Speaking about wins for Trump, this is a big win for him. Finally with this, I mean, I shouldn't say finally. I mean, this has only been a few months, 6 months. I don't even know. So Supreme Court finally is doing something that makes actual sense. They told lower court judges to stay in their lane. It's about time they stay in their lane. Let's see. They can no longer issue nationwide blocks against federal policies. One judge, as in basically one judge in California, can't shut down a Trump order meant for the whole country anymore. Is done, guys. You can't do it. So suck on that.
And yet, in the days since, there have been a number of judges who have continued to do exactly the same thing. So I don't know where and how how this is employed, how it's enforced, who's holding who accountable. Like, are they going to keep putting these injunctions in place only to have them fought again? I don't understand. I understand the ruling, and I love the ruling. And I love Amy Coney Barrett and how she put this. But what I don't get is what's the enforcement on this. So if you've got a lower level judge, we'll go with your example of California that says, this Trump policy is illegal, null and void, national injunction. Does everybody else in the country just look at that judge and give him the finger and just do what they were doing? Does somebody at a higher level court, like the Supreme Court, call down to them and say, hey, you can't do it. And if you do it again, we're going to hold you in contempt and, we're going to send you to jail or whatever it is. Like, I don't understand the enforcement of this. I do love the ruling though.
Love it. And I would be willing to bet it's going to be a combination of both, right? Like everybody is just going to laugh at them and say, you silly fool, nobody's listening to you, shut up. And if they keep it up, I would imagine, they'll be held in contempt. I mean, I would think that's like the most logical thing to happen, right? So I don't know.
Yeah,
I love it.
procedurally, that seems.
Mhm. Yeah. Let's see. Win for checks and balances. It keeps power in the hands of your vote. Yeah, I mean, I love it. And of course, the left is claiming that this is going to allow dangerous policies to go unchecked, which is awfully silly because there's still a process. I mean, there's still process. Like it's not, this obsession with a Trump dictatorship is literally the silliest, stupidest thing that they could possibly run with. And they've run with so many stupid, illogical, impractical things that this is just, it becomes comical after all. As frustrating and annoying as it is, it's just like this, this one gnat that keeps flying around your face and you keep swiping at it and it keeps coming back, I mean, that's what they're doing right now. But, it just stops judicial dictatorship. So he's not trying to be a dictator. He's just doing his job, what he's allowed to do in his role, executive decisions that the these courts have no say in. So it's just restoring that simple fact. They're so crazy.
Yeah, and that's exactly what Amy Coney Barrett wrote in her opinion, right? So she wrote for the majority opinion, and I am not a legal scholar, folks. I don't follow the written word of every legal opinion written by the Supreme Court. However, I don't ever recall anyone on the Supreme Court, another justice, outing one of their fellow justices in a written decision, which is exactly what happened. So Amy Coney Barrett essentially said what you just said, and
except way smarter.
She outed. I always screw it up. Ketanji Brown Jackson. What's her name?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. She, Amy Coney Barrett said, this other justice, Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown would much rather have a judiciary dictatorship than a executive dictatorship, which is what she's trying to say is appropriate. In other words, it gives the president the power that his office is supposed to have,
right.
Even though the left-leaning justices would all prefer to have the judiciary have all the power to stop the president, in which case they have their own dictatorial edict that they're following.
Right.
And she said, that's not how this nation works. That's not how our checks and balances work. That's not the powers of the judiciary do not arbitrarily trump the powers of the president at, an individual judge level below the Supreme Court. It doesn't work that way. But she outed her by name, which I don't ever recall happening. It may have happened before and I didn't know, but she outed. It was a slap down of epic proportions.
They must have like the most eloquent, intelligent battles behind closed doors, right? Because that was written so well that I'm humble enough to tell you, I had to read it like 4 times to understand what she was saying. I'm like, wait, what? And then again, wait, what? And then as it was sinking in, I was like, oh, that would be what we call a smackdown in our layman's terms, in our everyday people terms. That was pretty wild. So I can take a pretty good guess that they aren't getting along very well.
I can't imagine the lunchroom at the Supreme Court is a friendly place to be right now. There's probably a lot of passing and using the microwave and like not talking to each other kind of stuff going on.
Yes.
I'm sure it's not like that. I'm sure they all have their own kind of support life, around them that they don't have to worry about that. But they do have to sit with each other. I mean, there is a professional relationship, which I'm sure right now is like you said, is very ice cold. So
yes.
Interesting.
Yeah. Strained would be the understatement, right? Oh my goodness. Yep. Yeah, that was pretty
sure
great.
There were 7 other justices that like this.
Yes, no doubt. No doubt. Yeah, I wonder if they I do wonder about the behind the scenes stuff. Like, did she call up one of the other ones? She's like, okay, listen, what do you think of this? I'm going to say, what do you think if I say this? Yes, I know that they are not high school kids gossiping but boy, it would be so funny to be behind those closed doors and hear all of that stuff. It would probably go over my head anyhow, so it's all good. Oh, what else we got? Oh my goodness. It is, listen, government wise, it's been on like Donkey Kong, as they say. How about this? Did you even know? I mean, I don't know. Did anybody publicly know that this was going on? Like, was this investigation spoken about before the big bombshell was dropped? I didn't think so. Okay. I'm like, I know I don't pay attention to a lot of things, but I'm like, I feel like I would have, heard that was coming down the pipe, right? Oh my goodness. Hang on. I'm getting my notes
it was,
here.
It was very quiet and an investigation, with the FBI and others participating. And so this is multinational. This isn't just inside the United States, but it's they broke up in a number of different, vertical methods of fraud, $14.6 billion health insurance fraud, again, across a number of different continents, a number of different districts within the United States, and then a bunch of different methods or what was being fraudulently done. I mean, you've got everything. There's, what do they say? 324 defendants, including 96 various doctors and medical professionals. You've got Russia, Eastern Europe, the Middle East, the Far East, all involved. Crime syndicates within each of those. You've got identity theft. You've got Medicare fraud. You've got wound fraud. You've got prescription meds, specifically opioids, which was fraud with the intent to sell. That was a drug ring. The FBI is already seizing millions of dollars in assets to recover real money that was stolen from the American people. Listen, folks, Medicare was in the one big beautiful bill. Elsa talked about it, and she talked about how people are not happy about, cutting Medicare costs and benefits and some other things as part of the bill. Medicare has been ripped off. Like, most of this money that is being recovered or has been identified is Medicare money, almost all of it. So, you can be upset about holding people accountable within Medicare for their benefits, but when you don't hold them accountable for their benefits, this is what you get. You get an easily defrauded system, and people take advantage. Why? Because people suck globally, and that's what's going on here.
Yeah. You give people an opportunity to abuse the system, they're going to abuse the system. It is that simple. It's unfortunate. We like to think the best of everyone. And in a perfect world, we could. This is not that perfect world. We don't live in that. And, this is part of what we voted for. We want major reform of these systems, these organizations, these departments. We want massive overhaul and accountability. And that is exactly what we're getting. So, to answer the months old question of, is this what you voted for? Yeah, it is. Yes, it is. This makes me and so many people happy to see, because really, and you hit it. You said, the American people are the ones that are getting defrauded here, or getting money taken out of their pockets. Their hard-earned money is being taken out of your pockets, our pockets. I mean, we're talking about people working overtime and struggling and doing all, like, that's the kicker right there, doing all of the right things. And these SOBs are out there just taking and profiting, off of your struggle. So you should be very glad about this. You should be glad of all the movement that's happening right now to get things the way that they should be. And it's going to be a long process. This isn't going to be overnight. This is incredible. Government wise, this is warp speed compared to what we're used to, so no complaints on my part.
Yeah, this is not in keep this in perspective, folks. This is not workman's comp fraud. This isn't the guy down the street who says he's got a bad back, but he's outside mowing his lawn and he's drawing a workman's comp check. This is not a doctor who is, erroneously or being lazy about their prescriptions. This isn't, this is not petty stuff. These are massive crime syndicate. This is stolen identity, right? This is, just think in these terms. This is somebody on another continent stealing 100,000 identities, different identities of American citizens, using those identities to put in medical insurance claims, right? That get paid out from Medicare to them. This is a bank account. This is a high crime in the sense of, stealing from the government by identity fraud, through insurance fraud. and then on the edge of it, you've also got, and I think these were the Russian crime syndicate doing this, who were using this as a way to sell drugs, opioids, right? Prescription medication. They had American doctors on the hook, American healthcare professionals that were prescribing erroneously or outright stealing and selling, prescription meds, on behalf of them. So this is big stuff. This isn't small potatoes. It's $14.6 billion. And this is a big deal. And attaboy to the FBI and all the other, law enforcement agencies that played a part in this. This is white collar crime that we want and need the FBI to be looking into. It's nice to bust a drug dealer on the corner to get it out of your neighborhood, but this is a huge, huge thing.
Yeah, and that's always one of the big complaints, right? Like, oh, white collar crime, they always get away with all that stuff, Well, not anymore. No. They should be shaking in their patent leather shoes right now, And like you said, I mean, it's crazy. So fake, like you said, fake patient names, fake claims, real government checks being, sent out. Some, just like an example, some billed Medicare for catheters that were never delivered. Others submitted, here's a crazy one. Others submitted claims for diabetic monitors for dead people. I mean, come on. And it's because, why do they do it? Because they can, because there's been no checks and balances for any of this. It's just been running rampant. Because they're making money off it. And the people who are probably up until this point, who should have been monitoring this and stopping it, we're probably profiting as well. Here's a little something for you. Just keep your mouth shut. Don't worry about it. It's gross. But I'm glad to see that's hopefully the beginning of the end for all that stuff,
Yeah. And just a message for all those folks in the healthcare community. Listen, we are for those of you that are working your asses off, and most of you are, and you're working on the up and up. We're not lumping you in with these people. That's not what we're talking about. We're not vilifying the entire healthcare industry. However, if you're in the healthcare industry, and many, and a lot of folks are that are looking at the one big beautiful bill, and they're complaining because now they're saying, oh, well, X amount of people aren't going to have healthcare, and X amount of people aren't going to have access to this, and X amount of people aren't going to have access to that. Well, you have an obligation, especially if you work within the industry, to clean up the industry. Right. There are people within the industry who may not be guilty of all of the things that the FBI just uncovered, but you probably have some visibility. There are folks out there who have visibility and have knowledge who have decided to turn their head and not say anything. So, unfortunately, now you've got national level law enforcement involved, and drastic measures have to be taken. So I don't like associating one with the other. I would prefer that Medicare had all the funding that it absolutely needs, but at the same time, $14.6 billion being stolen is and now being recovered is a big deal, and hopefully that kind of levels the playing field a little bit. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah. And, correct me if I'm wrong, but common sense tells me that we are literally the ones paying for this in our premiums. I mean, this is probably the biggest part, besides our, propensity for obesity and poor lifestyles and all those things. Besides that, this is probably the biggest reason for why we spend so much in healthcare. It's because we're covering for the fraud of other people who are sitting back and enjoying the fruits of our labor, off of our broken backs, sometimes pretty literally. So yeah, this is a much bigger win, or the start of a much bigger win, that we should all be, big time applauding, right?
Yeah, for sure. And again, it's about tightening things up. It's nice when your physician says, this is the treatment you need. We'll get it for you, but really you could also do this and this and this and this, and maybe you don't need it and maybe you do, but we can try it, and I'm going to prescribe it, and those kinds of things. And that kind of free-handed attitude is exactly why you have people exploiting the system, is because they know that inside of the system nobody wants to look into it, because there is that, a lot of doctors have that mentality. And I appreciate the fact that they're trying to take care of their patients, but you open the door to things like this at the same time. It's a razor's edge, kind of thing. It's like the cop that is nice to the neighborhood kids, right? And then, they're nice to him and they let him go. And then 3 years later, that kid, has gone the opposite. Instead of taking that graciousness from that police officer and said, "Hey, I could have been a lot worse, and I decided to go in a great direction with my life," they go the other way and they say, "Hey, sucker cop," and 3 years later they're selling drugs on the corner, right? So it's a razor's edge, and I don't necessarily blame the doctors, but the system itself is flawed, and that's why opportunities like this exist.
Yeah, absolutely. How are we doing? We're doing okay. We got to move on. We got still several more topics here. This one is a heartbreaker, and if you're someone like me, it fills you with righteous rage on behalf of these people. Absolutely awful. 2 firefighters were intentionally ambushed and killed in Idaho while responding to a brush fire. A third was wounded. Investigators believe that the suspect lured them in and opened fire. It was a premeditated attack on public servants. This is awful. Their names were, and I've got their pictures here because I want to make sure we give them some respect here. Their names were Frank Harwood and John Morrison, and they died doing what they were called to do, which is serve and protect their community. And now, of course, their families are planning funerals instead of homecomings, and it is absolutely horrendous. I don't know the status of the third victim at the moment. I just know that, do you know? Recovering.
So, listen, folks, those were not 2 average Joe firefighters. Those were 2 battalion chiefs, right? That's leadership in 2 fire departments that, we watch wildfires out west every year. And folks like that are so important to, those areas on so many levels. And this young man, Wes Rowley, like you said, it's an ambush. He purposely set the fire is what they're saying right now. There is speculation that he spoke to these 3 firemen and then backed away and opened fire on them after. There was something about his car. I don't know if maybe they caught him in the act in a way, but they basically said something about, "Hey, your car's not supposed to be parked there." And there was an interaction, and then he shot him, killed 2, wounded a third. And then, there's been a lot of, he did commit suicide, coward's way out, as expect. He continued to fire on the firefighters for a while. It delayed, obviously, treating the brush fire that he started, which made things even worse. Right. And then the police found him dead. He killed himself. But this is a troubled young man. And there have been some falsehoods out there already, which is sickening. His parents were arborists. They've worked in the woods. He's been in the woods his entire life. He wanted to be a firefighter. He has had some sort of falling out with his mother, and she separated herself from him. There was speculation that she had filed a restraining order against him. That has been debunked. That is not true. Rumors about him being transgender, I think those have also been debunked. But there was obviously something very mentally wrong with this young man. And he was prone and known to violent outbursts. His friends from high school, which has only been out of high school for a year, his friends from high school said you had to take him in small doses. He was a very aggressive person. He could switch on and off. And he was just a lot to deal with. So it sounds like he was mentally unstable in probably more ways than one. And this is how he decided to act, which is horrible.
Yeah, and I know people are always very quick to, blame the parents, and there are plenty of times where that is not incorrect to do, but you don't know until you know, and the mental health system, mental health care facilities, all of those things, that whole system is yet another broken system. So, and I do know people, families who have mentally unstable children who are violently unstable, and to get the help that they need is you would be horrified if you don't know what they go through. You would be so disheartened and heartbroken and angry, really, that they can't get the help that they need, and then things like this happen. So this certainly could very well be a case like that, because like you, Clay, I'm so tired of people just running with falsehoods and just making things up. And slight segue for a second, not unlike the whole, did you hear about the little girl that fell off of the Disney cruise ship and the father jumped in?
Yeah.
Incredible story, but almost immediately people were saying on the internet. People were saying, oh, well, you know what happened? He put the girl on the railing and that's why she fell off. That's been debunked. That did not happen. So, I just wish everybody would just shut up until you know what happened. But back to this one, you have certain people, like the only thing that they'll say about some, we talked about this last week, the stories that we should be, as a society, we should be talking about and that get ignored by the mainstream media. This falls under that category also. The only thing that they have to say about this is, well, what do they always say? We need stricter gun laws, gun control legislation, blah, blah, blah. And the fact is you cannot legislate away evil, mental illness. It doesn't work. A mentally stable, sane person would not do these things. A legal gun owner, more often than not, I mean, we can find those statistics pretty easily, I'm sure, are not doing these things. These are, whether you want to look at them as evil or mentally ill or combination of both, however you want to look at it, these are people that operate outside of societal norms. They are not going to follow the rules. It's literally that simple. So, please spare me the whole gun control conversation. I'm so over that one too,
Yeah, this is a breakdown in mental health.
Yeah.
The harder part too, and you talked about those families that have children with challenges.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as somebody hits 18, it becomes even more difficult for the family because now they have no legal oversight or even really input into what happens with that individual once they become an adult. So in this kid's case, Wes Rowley or Rowley, he was 20 years old. So, at that point, his parents, and supposedly he spoke to his grandparent or his grandfather about once a week. The young man was living in his car. He was, very kind of in an unstable situation. And then he kind of went off the net a couple of weeks ago and hadn't talked to his grandfather. But, you can, as a family member, you can say all you want, but if they're, once they're adults, unless they're breaking the law, there's not a lot you can do. So it becomes even more challenging. And I think that this one is a failure along the way, probably of the mental health and criminal justice system along the way to get this young man help or identify him as a potential violent actor. And, at least get him into some sort of an institution or protective custody of some kind. But, we could second guess all of this. Like you said, we only know what we've been told so far. I think hopefully this won't go into the back page of the newspaper and we won't ever hear about it again. But most likely that's what's going to happen, unfortunately. And we won't ever really know, especially since this young man decided to kill himself. There's no follow-up to this, right?
No, right.
Other than the potential to charge a parent for some sort of neglectful, purchasing of a gun for a minor, but the kid's 20 years old. Like there's really not much more I think we're going to get out of this one, which is a shame. But that's kind of where things are at right now.
Yeah. And it's just, it's just that reminder, I think, that, first of all, what is out there in the world right now? Not that like anybody needs that reminder, right? But, it kind of is. It's just a societal breakdown. Mental illness, all of these things, these are such ongoing long-term problems that we face and deal with. And, the implications and the causes of all of that are so big and so intertwined. And it's one of those things that, solution-wise, if there is ever one, it's going to take a really, really long time. So I'm guessing at the very least, I feel like the least we can do is get the story straight. Or not even speculate on them until you get, or you can speculate on them. And everybody does that. That's what you do. But don't pass things off as fact until you know what the facts actually are, and offer some grace and compassion to the families until if they're dirtbags, who contributed to this, well, then your feelings change a little bit on that. But again, we don't know until we know. All right, listen, we hit all of the heavy stuff right at the get-go. I think everything else we have on here is kind of a little bit fun. You guys want to have some fun? Yeah? What do you think, Clay?
Elsa and I were talking before the show started about, we're trying to figure out, we want to do something at the end we occasionally hit I'll say human interest story. That's probably being a little gracious, but something more in the, tabloid, People magazine, make you laugh or smile. We hit some of these stories occasionally. And I think that we both agree that we need to do a little bit more of this, especially at the end of the show when we hit so many heavy topics like this. So we're going to hit a few of those newsstand, as you're standing there in the grocery line and you're looking at all of those magazines that sit there, some of those kinds of stories, which maybe aren't so heavy. So what do we got first? Bezos?
Okay. Wait, we got to do, so we're going to we'll do a gentle transition because we got to talk about this silly girl. We got to start with her. So we're easing out of the political lane into the People magazine, which she's probably on People magazine too. I'm sure she's a little celebrity in her own mind. So I crack myself up every day because this is what I do. So I did two things here. I'm going to show you the first one. So listen, if you know what this is a reference to. And if you don't know, let's see, I'm trying to think how much of this other clip that I put in here. Well, if you don't know, I'll tell you. Everybody remembers J-Lo, right? I mean, she's still around, but Jenny from the Block, she's the Bronx girl. Yeah. So I had to do this. This is very similar to her little outfit. That, I amused myself to no end with that. And I did a skit, an AOC skit yesterday, I think it was yesterday, about this. It's a longer skit. I cut most of it out and I'll just show you the end here. So here it is.
Wrote in that post, but I want you to say it like you're from the Bronx. I am a Bronx girl, and you should know that we eat Queens boys for breakfast. Not even close. Bronx. I'm going to stop you there. I'll tell you what. I got just the thing for you to listen to. This is going to tell you how to talk and act like a real Bronx girl, okay? Oh, all right. Where's that play button? There it is.
When I was 16 in the Bronx, running up and down the block, a crazy little girl who used to be wild and no limits, all dreams.
Don't be fooled by the rocks that I got. I'm still AOC from the Block. That was so good, right? Yeah, I think it was really good.
So yeah, listen, guys, I know you don't have to jump in the comments, say you don't quite have the voice yet. It's close, but I know that I don't. And I don't really think it's going to happen. So we're just going to, extreme parody here, just, imagine it in your mind. But I was told that I got the crazy eyes down pretty well. So I'm good with that. The deer in headlight, wild eyes. So yay, I got that right. So if anybody is sitting here going, I don't even know what's going on. What are you talking about, Elsa? I will tell you. So a yearbook photo and multiple witnesses confirmed that AOC grew up in a wealthy Westchester County. Wealthy Westchester County, not the crime-ridden Bronx persona she built her career on. So she's been telling everybody that she's from the Bronx, she's representing, and she's another one. This is their favorite thing to do. She changes her accent to whatever group she's talking to. So sometimes she puts on her, her Latina voice, and she puts that heavy Latina accent, or ghetto Latina is what she tries to do. And then she, when she's talking to white people, she talks very nasal. Well, she talks nasally anyhow, but yeah. So she does all of the trademark things that they do, but she's been telling everybody that she's a Bronx girl. That quote that she said is exactly what she did say, something about us Bronx girls eat Queens boys for breakfast. She's referring to President Trump. That's who she was directing that at. So somebody, of course, dug up the high school picture, maybe elementary high school picture. And she's like, what is it, like Yorktown or something like that?
Yeah. This is another politician, conservative politician who went to high school with her. And, when she said that about the president, he's like, okay, I've had enough. And so he said he watched her, he saw it pop up. He reached behind him, he grabbed his yearbook, he snapped a photo of it, and he posted it on social media. And it is of her in high school, Yorktown, New York. Very, kind of comfortable upbringing, suburban neighborhood. She was in the science club, in high school, and everybody, they didn't call her Alexandria or Lexi, or everybody called her Sandy.
Sandy.
Danny Zuko is Sandy. So she was known as Sandy in a very well-off, suburban neighborhood, and she's not a Bronx girl. They moved out of the neighborhood when she was 5 years old, right?
Yeah.
And
the Bronx is out of you, kid.
Didn't go back there until after college. So she's not a Bronx girl, folks. She's not a tough girl from the streets. She's a suburban girl, and is not anything that she has claimed that she is. Go figure.
Right. And, and let's not get it twisted, because there's going to be people like, oh, you're making such a big deal out of nothing. So she did live in the Bronx for a period of time. You're just nitpicking her because you don't like her. No, this is about authenticity. This is about honesty. This is about accountability, calling people out for lying to the American people. If you're lying about who you are, you're going to lie about anything and everything. You have lost all credibility right out the gate if that is what you're doing. And that's more of what it is. You don't get to just cosplay a whole life, a whole existence to just fit in with every group that you're talking to and change your little cosplay costume for each one and expect that you're not going to get called out for it. You should be called out for it. It's garbage. It's a gross thing to be doing. You're lying, you're deceiving, and it's not cute and it's not funny. We're making fun. But the reality of it is really not funny at all, which is why we have to make jokes about it, because otherwise we would get so angry.
Well, it's Kamala.
So
it's Kamala part 2. It's the exact same thing, misrepresenting who they are. It's Barack Obama, same thing, misrepresenting who they are.
Hillary Clinton, same thing with the hot sauce.
Yeah, he was exactly hot sauce in her purse. But Obama, Barry, the whole time he was growing up. Barry.
Yes.
And that's what they do. They play to they play to the crowd, they play to the masses, and now she's. The question is anybody going to hold her accountable other than making fun of her to her face now, which they are definitely going to do. And gotta hope that people catch it and they put it on the internet, because that's the stuff I want to see.
Same.
Speaking of manufactured, let's take a look at the 3-day $50 million celebration. And I say manufactured, folks, because when you look at the crowd, well, first of all, you look at his wife, that is like plastic.
Yes.
That is definitely manufactured, but you look at the crowd who's there, and listen, this is Billionaires Row. We all know that.
Yep.
These people do not hang out together. This is all of these friendships are manufactured. This is not like, he is not calling Oprah on the weekends. They're not hanging out and, doing the thing. He doesn't hang out with DiCaprio. Tom Brady was there. I know he doesn't hang out with Brady. There's a big review about him and who's the young girl. There was some 24-year-old.
Sweeney, Sydney Sweeney. Yes.
Yeah. There was a bunch of guys who were upset about that. They're like, listen, because there was rumors of Tom Brady hitting on Sydney Sweeney, or the two of them, having a little chat up. It's like, you don't get to be like that good looking and be the best quarterback of all time and be in that kind of great physical shape in your 40s and get Sydney Sweeney. Like, you can't. That's not cool.
You can't have it all. You cannot have everything. Yeah.
But the wedding party itself was totally manufactured, and it was it's embarrassing. Truthfully, it's embarrassing.
It was an embarrassing, gross display of obscene wealth, and which, by the way, more power to you. I don't really care. I mean, I genuinely don't care. You figured out a way to become a billionaire. Congratulations. That is what this country is all about. The opportunities and the abilities for a guy who started his business out of his garage to become a multi-billionaire. More power to you. So it's not about that. Yeah, exactly. Right. I mean, it is so not about that. And I know it is for other people. I know a lot of people are like, so angry about the, grotesque display of wasteful spending when the money can go to other things and, better things and all of that. All of that is absolutely true. However, it is his money to do with what he wishes, and that's his business. I kind of look at it more like at the guests, really, that the people, all of them flying in on their, private jets. Those are all the same people that are lecturing us about, saving the environment and our carbon footprint and all of these things and being more careful and caring about the planet. You're terrible people. I'm trying to, it's one of those times where I'd like to swear. I'm not doing it. But just how about do this? Shut up. Like, go ahead, enjoy your obscene wealth, fly around on your jet planes, but don't you dare tell me about my carbon footprint or what I should do to protect the climate. How about don't lecture me on one single thing ever after this nonsense? So stupid, right, Clay?
All right, what else? Who's our next celebrity victim?
Our next, let's see. Oh, ew. So ew. So gross, so gross. And that's why I mean, I don't even have a picture to put up because I cannot even look at that man's face. So did he, he basically got away with everything. I think it was 5 charges. I think he got hit on 2 of them, which were the mildest, most minor ones. All of the big stuff, not guilty. We could speculate all day.
He walked away from the racketeering stuff and the trafficking stuff, and those are the big ones that we're going to put him away forever. There's been an interesting celebrity reaction to this. Rosie O'Donnell, who I really don't care about, she said, well, of course, nobody believed the women, which may or may not have been true. I honestly, folks, I didn't follow much of this because it was really, really disgusting. But very interesting that 50 Cent was like, did he beat the feds? That's a bad dude. Like, there's people that know the truth and they know that he got over on this, which is pretty disgusting, but an absolute failure of the justice system. Hopefully he spends a little bit of time in jail. But I have a feeling this is one of those things where nature's going to take its course and somebody's going to right this along the way in some way, shape, or form. I'm not prognosticating, but, he does dabble in the world of, Biggie Smalls and Tupac and those folks who are both dead, by the way.
Yes.
And so this one might get settled in outside of a courtroom. We'll have to see how that works.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny that you said that because I was thinking the same thing when that verdict came out. I was like, okay, all right, you got away with this right now. Well, there's a little street justice probably coming your way, sir. So I hope you got your bodyguards ready because you're going to need them because somebody going to get at them, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
Let's be real here. There was nonstop talk and I think some verification of like copious amounts of videos and proof and evidence against people that were at these parties. So much so. Like, I think they showed pictures of like I don't know if it was a cabinet or I don't know what it was, but it was just, top to bottom videos, cassettes and whatever. This is what he had on all of these people. And if anybody thinks that those are the only copies that he had of stuff, he had too much on too many people who have too much power and influence. And, this was set to happen probably right from the get-go, that nothing really was going to come of this because too many people, it's another Epstein. And we're never going to get closure on these things.
So there is a rumored, and I have not proven this, please somebody tell me if it's true or not, that the prosecuting attorney for this is the same prosecuting attorney for Ghislaine Maxwell. It is James Comey. It is his daughter, I believe, former director of the FBI.
His daughter. And
so she failed in both prosecutions. And oh, by the way, we still have not seen a list of the people that they trafficked in any way, shape, or form. There's too many famous names involved with this, and that's why. So, we got anything else? Who else? Is there one more?
We'll squeeze in our last one here. UPenn. This is actually a great one to end on because it's a victory. We love a good victory. Yes, this was a great victory. Go ahead, Clay.
Yeah. So UPenn finally caved to the mandate by the president about transgenders in sports. And if you remember, UPenn is the center of this because of Riley Gaines and Leah Thomas. And so they have since said we will no longer have transgender athletes competing in the women's categories and have stripped all of the winnings and titles and everything else from Leah and so Riley Gaines and the women who also got screwed over in this whole thing have been given their rightful titles and accolades and everything else. And of course, you've got people out there like Keith Olbermann, who's never done anything but run his mouth in his entire life, is taking pot shots at her, congratulations on now being tied for 4th instead of tied for 5th. Yes, nationally, Keith Olbermann, you stopped playing sports in high school because you had a concussion, but now all you do is run your mouth. So good for Riley Gaines and all of those other ladies who've gotten now the accolades they deserve. Should have been better done at the time, but UPenn has said, "Yep, we're done. No more transgender athletes. We would prefer our athletic funding is being withheld." And the purse, the power of the purse, folks. That's where it's at.
Power of the purse. Yeah, absolutely. And Trump has known that all along. And I feel like, if you picture that house of cards and the foundation, and I feel like UPenn was like that one card right at the bottom that just got pulled out. And I really feel like this is the start. the true start. We know that there's been cases where things have been reversed and turned around already, but this is probably one of the biggest ones because this is where it started it all, particularly for Riley Gaines, and what she's done with this has been absolutely incredible for women and girls in sports. She has done so much for them, and it's just amazing. And I hope she continues to get like all the recognition for that. This actually reminds me, I know that was supposed to be our last one, but it just, as we're talking, I'm like, oh, this is so funny. So I had shared, I don't know if you saw it, but how J.K. Rowling just, gets battered by, or attacked. I should say battered because she batters them pretty well. The trans communities or trans supporters, they're always coming after her. And especially like big name people like Pedro Pascal, who, is such a girly man, just shut up. But the funniest one for me, I have to share this very quickly. I had put together the exchange that she had with Boy George. And I don't know if you saw that when she had a little exchange with Boy George. Boy George thought he would enter the chat, say a little one-liner and just prance away and, call it a win. Well, she unleashed on him epically, just ground him into the dirt verbally. And I had shared that with my own little comment about it. And I also put with it music. I put Boy George's old song, Do You Really Want to Hurry? So, it was like the whole thing. Never really thought anything. I put it out there, gave my opinion on it, moved on in life. Days later, I happened to see the notifications on my phone, and I see the name Boy George, like at Boy George, his handle basically on Instagram. And I'm like, oh, geez, what is this? A fake account? That's pretty funny. So I look at it and it's a verified, and I'm like, it's not really him. So I go off and I look it up. I find out that it really is Boy George commenting on my post. I'm embarrassed for him. It was a very silly, stupid comment. Nothing, it wasn't even bad. Like, it wasn't bad. I put it up on the screen and everything too. Misspelling. It was just written. I gave him a very nice response back, and that's been the end of it. But it just cracked me up. It's right up there. I've had a couple of funny ones. I had Mark Cuban comment on one of my Kamala Harris impressions. Yep. Alec Baldwin, who I haven't been very nice to, followed me. Had to be by accident. I don't know if he still is. Yeah, it's very weird. It's very weird, but entertaining and amusing. So whatever. But yeah, that was my fun little segue there that very nice. I had to share. My 80s girl heart, kind of hurt a little bit because that was, we talked about this before. My eclectic music love and Culture Club, I'm sorry guys, was one of my favorites for a hot minute. So yeah. Anyhow, well, this was fun. This was a fun way to end the show, right? Just talking about these kind of fluffy, silly things or happy things. UPenn is not a fluffy thing. It's a happy conclusion to a not happy situation. So, but that was fun. I like that. What do you guys think? Do you think we should end every show with something light and fun and just maybe like a culture commentary, stuff like Clay said, a little People magazine here for you, right? I like it, Clay. Do you like it?
Yeah, I think it's good. I think we cover a lot of heavy stuff. We cover, so many heavy things in the world. I think we have often tried to go out the door on a good note. It doesn't always work out that way, but I think if we kind of put our minds to it, we can focus and, go out with a fun one or a funny one way or the other. And I think it's a good way to tie things up.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. All right. You let us know in the comments if you agree. Hopefully you agree. We might do it anyway, even if you don't agree. It's our show. We can do whatever we want. Sorry, I'm just kidding. I'm just being bratty. We love you guys. As always, we appreciate you hanging out with us. Join us in the comments section and let's talk about all these topics. Give your opinions. If you disagree, agree, whatever, have a different take entirely. Love to hear it. Right, Clay? Clay, close them out with your exciting news reminder, please. And then
okay, so you guys will be watching. You'll be watching this on Thursday night, the 3rd of July, and happy to announce the re-release of Keep Moving, Keep Shooting, 2nd edition, new cover. Will be coming out tomorrow on the 4th. It'll be available on Amazon, hardcover, softcover. I am working on the audiobook. It's also out. It will be out ebook as well. But I am working on the audio. There's been a ton of people that have asked for that. But I'm working with a new publisher. And if you haven't read it, read it now because the sequel is coming out next month. And for those of you longtime fans, which I love you all, I know you've been asking for this, pestering and in some cases threatening me about the second. I'm happy to announce that's coming as well. But yes, tomorrow, the 4th of July, Keep Moving, Keep Shooting is available on Amazon. If you like action fiction, Jack Ryan, Jack Reacher, Jason Bourne, this is right up your alley. And until then, enjoy your 4th of July. And as always for me, keep moving, keep shooting.
Happy 4th of July, everyone.
Prepare for the re-release of Clay's electrifying novel, Keep Moving, Keep Shooting. This is book 1 in his gripping Terry Davis series. Experience an edge-of-your-seat thriller that will leave you breathless. Get your copy of this highly anticipated re-release. It drops July 4th. Don't miss it. She's the voice behind the viral comedy, bold commentary, and truth-packed interviews that cut through the chaos. Author, brand creator, proud conservative Christian, this is Elsa. Welcome to the show that always brings bold faith, real truth, and no apologies.